It's me again, and I have a confession I have to make, and it ain't really easy. But I have to admit, a long time ago, when I was a kid, probably a lot younger than you guys are, close to when I was like 10, I had a Rubik's Cube, and I couldn't solve it. No matter what I did or how hard I worked on it, my confession is that I couldn't solve it. And all through my childhood, could never solve the thing. Though I had friends who could solve it, and a lot of them tried to teach me how, but I didn't have the focus or the cognitive capacity to solve the darn thing. I could get a side, sometimes two sides, occasionally three sides, but that's as far as I could get. So, in my times of despair and humiliation to not be able to do that, I would turn to another twisty puzzle that had come out at about that time, and that was this guy, the Pyraminx. The thing that I really liked about the Pyraminx is that I could solve it. I could actually solve this thing. It was obviously much simpler than the Rubik's Cube, but no matter how much I tried the cube, I couldn't solve it. But this one, I was actually able to do that. And that helped bolster my confidence and help bolster my self-esteem. And in my times, my darkest hours of humiliation, I would turn to this and solve it. And this always had a special place in my heart because of that, this Pyraminx. So, of course, what I would do is I would scramble it and start out by these guys and make it look real scrambled, turning these corners. And then I just turn this guy around here and turn it around and scramble it to a point where I thought you have to be really, really smart to be able to solve this thing. Turn it, turn it, turn it, turn it, and then when I decided that it was scrambled enough, I would have at it. First step, of course, I'd turn these things because, hey, that's part of the process of solving it. Put these in and I'm doing good. And just look at it. I could turn it in various directions, various places. Turn it here, here, and get things in here. And without too much effort, just start putting in corners. Barely even knowing why I was doing it, how it was working, why it should even work. Just kind of mucking about with it. Turn this like so. And turn this here. And it's solved. And there you have it. So what I'm going to do is after solving this came the higher order pyramids, which had a little bit more of a challenge to it. So I think it's worth going over some of the basics of how these pyramid puzzles work to help us solve some of the higher order pyramids. One thing to keep in mind when I just want to point something out. If this were an R move over here, and this were a U move over here, something to keep in mind is that if I do R, U, R-I, U-I, and I do that 3 times, so that was 1, do it again, 2, and 3, U, R-I, U-I, you see that it came exactly back to where it was before, just by doing that 3 times. Doesn't have any effect on anything else, but it brings us back right to the beginning. Now, I don't really intend to do a Pyraminx tutorial. There's plenty that's out there, and as I've shown, it's fairly easy to solve. But I want to go through some aspects of the solution which could be helpful in higher order pyramids in the future. So, in order to solve this, the technique that we're going to be using first is defining where our centers are, defining the type of pieces that we're looking at. We put these in first. These really don't play any role. They don't really contribute to the scramble too much, and they don't contribute to the solution. It's really more of a vestigial thing that doesn't seem to contribute too much. But basically, we want to define, we've got these edges over here where the base faces the outside, and then you've got these edges where the base faces the top here. And they all kind of meet in the middle. And what you want to do is you want to put all these colors together to define that as a side, being a face turner. So here's blue, get the other blue in place, over here, and then try to get these in place over here. Once you do that, the real simple turn that you can do is putting all these corners in on a side, almost by like a Rubik's Cube technique where you're just putting edges in. Something I want to point out though is, let's say you want to get the green and the red here. Here's a green and red. We'll just move this down because all the greens are up here. So if I wanted to put the green and red up here, obviously I could just turn it down and place it like this. And that's basically what I'm going to be doing. But I want to point out something else. Another way that I could do it, which I don't need to do in this particular puzzle, is to move it up in this plane. Actually, we'll move it here. We have to move it in this direction to move it where it needs to be. But if I don't want to ruin anything else, I can move it up in this plane, then move it again in its other plane, and then move it back. So we can go up, up, down, down. And the overall effect is it puts that in without messing up some of the other sides. But the best way of putting this particular one in is just focus on side by side. So here's green and yellow. Here's a green and yellow. It's over here. So just move this down, up and in. And I'm not even caring about what happens anywhere else. Green and blue. And I can put this in over here, and I have this side. Then I'm just going to focus on another side and not really care about what I just did here, because eventually it's all going to be put in. So I'm done with the green, blue, and red. Now it's up here. So why don't we try the blue and yellow? Here's the blue and yellow here. So move this down, turn, and up. Well, why don't we do it right? So put this here, 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 and here. And you may notice we may be messing things up, but we really don't even have to care. Blue and red. Blue and red's over here. Move this here. I'm just going to move it twice so that it hits something that's not in place. Move it here and up, and it's solved. So it's pretty easy. I didn't really care about anything else. I just focused on putting these edges in like that. So how can we use these principles to apply it to higher order cubes? Well, puzzles, pyramids rather. So in walks its cousin, the master Pyraminx. This was printed off in Shapewise by Shim. I believe his name is Timur. Stickers were sent very graciously to him, by him rather. So this is a 1, 2, 3 layer. It's really a 2-layer because, like I say, this doesn't really enter into the solve or the scramble. So it's just a 2-layer, very simple pyramid. This one is a 1, 2, 3. I guess 4 if you count this. So this is where the process of solving comes more into play. So we'll go ahead and scramble this, and we'll do the scrambles with the top part here as well. Why not? Make it look as impressive as possible. And we'll just turn this. Now, this turns very well. Again, this was by Timur. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. One of the fantastic pyramid puzzles that he's put out. And we're just going to keep scrambling it. Okay, so that's scrambled pretty well here. So first thing to do is let's start defining some of our pieces here in conjunction with the regular Pyraminx. So there's a couple basic pieces. First off, these we can put in. Doesn't really contribute much to the scramble or to the solve. It's more of a vestigial. But it does kind of get the creative juices going and gets you in the mood to solve the thing. So put this in here. Now here, there's something that you're going to see here that you did not see with the Pyraminx. With the Pyraminx, if we were to have blown this out, then this piece will have emerged and appeared. This is actually a center, kind of a true center that we didn't see before, something that we're going to have to learn how to deal with. And just to the sides of the center, you've got basically the edges over here, and then these corner pieces here, which is kind of like our surrogate centers. But what these edges are, there's actually 2 species of edges. There's one where the base articulates with the middle triangle, and that's what I'll call the inner center. And then in this case you have two species of outer centers where the base is basically pointing to the outside. So, and they're dealt with a little bit differently. The first step is exactly like the Pyraminx. Let's put all of these guys in so that they're the same color. So here's a green. Let's match it up with other greens. Here's another green here, and the other green is over here. So this is in place. Red, 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 blue, blue, blue. So that's actually not hard. If that was out, then you put it here. In terms of these centers, I don't worry about those yet. As a matter of fact, I would rather deal with those at the end. You could deal with those now, but it's actually easier for me to do it at the end. The next step is to put in what I call the skeleton. Now the skeleton is putting in these inner edges, the ones where the base articulates with the center. And the way that we're going to do that is by employing a potential crisscross algorithm, crisscross strategy, so that we don't destroy things that we just put in. But it's fairly intuitive, and just like with the Pyraminx, even if you don't quite know what you're doing, it generally solves itself. So we'll start off with the green. I'll put the red on the bottom. So I'm going to want to put the green and yellow in. So where's the green and yellow? Green and yellow right over here. So if I turn this here, this green and yellow, all I have to do is move this up here like this. Bang. So that's in, then move this back. Now be careful so you don't get confused. I'm defining the sides based on these guys, not based on this center like we're usually apt to do. So green and yellow, that's good. Now I want to put in the yellow and blue. So where's the yellow and blue? Yellow and blue is over here, so all I've got to do is move this up here. Now because this was facing down, it didn't offset this guy at all. So yellow and blue is in. So how about blue and green? Blue and green. So here's the blue and green. So I'm going to move this over. It won't come in this way. This will be the wrong side. So I'm going to move this over again. And then I just move it up from here. So turn like so. And then we'll turn this green one back. So I've got the blue and green, green and yellow, yellow and blue. Just so happened that these middles ended up solved. I actually didn't plan it that way, but sometimes it works that way. Now we'll do the red side. Any reds that are already in, and no. So why don't we try to do the red and the green and red. So where's the green and red? Here's a green and red over here, and what I'm going to want to do is move this up here. The problem is that if I do that, if I move this up here, that's great, but I've taken this side out. So what can I do? How can I move this in while preserving this side? And this is where we get to our crisscross pattern to make that happen. What I'm actually going to want to do to put a side in, to put an edge in without ruining another edge, is I'm going to end up moving it in from one plane and then moving it out from another plane that this belongs to in a crisscross pattern. So I'm going to move it up to here, and then I'm going to move it out using this. But I don't want to ruin this side either. So what I'm going to do, knowing that it's going to move again in this plane, is I'm going to move another edge that I have not put in up. So I'm going to move this up like here, knowing that once I put this in, I'm going to have to move it down from there. I think I can demonstrate it better than I explain it. So I move this up here, because this could be a sacrificial lamb. This is not solved. So I'm going to go up, so that moves this here. Then in a different plane, but still moving this piece, I'm going to go down, and then just reverse it. Down and up. And then I'm going to move this back down. So here's the overall effect. The overall effect is I put this in, this edge in, and I didn't touch these guys. Now sometimes what happens when you do that, the rest happen to be solved, and that's what happened in this case. Blue and red is here, green and red, and yellow and red. So we put in what I call the skeleton. The skeleton is where you put this framework in, this meshwork in. Now sometimes it doesn't work out so cleanly. And you have to keep maneuvering things around, but usually it doesn't take too much to put those in. The next step then is let's look at our centers, and all these centers are out, which is fine. If only one was in but the rest weren't, then we're not going to be able to solve it that way, and we have to move it out and then reconstitute these inner edges. These are basically easy. It's a matter of just substituting. So let's do this one. Let's look for a blue and yellow. Here's a blue and yellow here. Is it the right one? Well, we can move it here and down, and you can see it's not the right one. So we got to find another one, which is going to be over here. So here's the other blue and yellow. So I move this over here. I move this over here. So this is actually the right one. So what I'm going to do is move this in and then turn this to exchange it with another one. It's all pretty intuitive. So we move this in like so. You can see this is right. Turn it, and then we want to bring this down. Now before I bring it down, this is a yellow and green. Do I have a yellow and green here that I can use? No. How about blue and red? Well, there is. There's blue and red side here. So I'm just going to turn this here and turn this here, and then bring it down. So you can see I did a nice even exchange, and this is still in here. All right, what about blue and red? Blue and red, right over here. Is it the right one? Yeah, it's the right one. And because I have still one that's out, I can do an exchange. So I'm going to move this down here, turn it, and move it back up. So now how about red and yellow? Red and yellow is right here, over here. So I'll move it into position. Now because both of these are solved, I'm not going to want to move this up to here because I have nothing to exchange it with. So in this case I want to move it down and move it in. So I'm going to turn this so that I can move it down and turn this into it. This is a yellow and red. Could I possibly exchange it with something here? No. So I'm just going to move it down, turn it, bring it up, and that's in place. So this whole corner here is solved. Let's do this one. How about green and blue? Where's the green? Here's a green and blue. Is it the right one? Move it into position so it's just across from each other. And yeah, it's the right one. Don't want to move it down because I have nothing to exchange it with. So instead I'm going to move this down to this level and exchange it that way. I've got a green and a yellow that I'm moving down. Could I use that? Yeah, here's green and yellow here. So I'm going to move this in like so. Move this down to meet it. And I wanted to exchange it with the blue and green. So find the blue and green and bring that back. So this here is now solved. It just leaves this side and this side. So how about green and red? Here's a green and red over here. I've got two that are out. Well, actually I just have one that's out. So I'm going to move this in, turn it. Now this is going to be a blue and yellow. So why don't I turn this to where it'll accept the blue and yellow? Well, actually I don't want to do that because I'll miss this. I'll just move it down. How's that sound? All right, next is going to be red and yellow. Here's a red and yellow here. But I've got nothing more to exchange with on this side, so I'm just going to move it down. Green and blue. Okay, well here's a green and blue here, but it interferes with the red and yellow, so I'm just going to turn this down, back, and up. So this is solved. Alright, I've got everything solved except this. Everything is where it's supposed to be on the right side, but they're all flipped over. So I'm actually going to have to find something to just exchange it with. So this side will be my sacrificial lamb. I'm just going to move this out, back, and up for the purposes of bringing this back in. So green and yellow. I'll move this down, turn it like so. And bring this down here, and I'll just do an exchange here. Again, a lot of this is intuitive. I'm not getting into too much detail with this, but suffice it to say, this is green. This is a blue and green. This can find a home here. So turn it down here, turn it like this, and turn it back. So all these corners are in place. Hope I didn't go too fast, but anyway, all I have left over are these centers, are these middles. So how am I going to deal with that? Well, I'm going to make use of the algorithm that I showed you here. Remember when I defined this as the R and this is the U, and I did my R, U, Ri, Ui, did that 3 times? Well, in this puzzle, everything just returned back to where it was. When there's a center, the same thing will happen. The outer shell will return back, but I will be flipping these middles. And this particular algorithm is going to be causing these two to flip with each other, which is good, and these two to flip with each other. Now what you do is you hold it to where the ones that you want to flip are just across from each other. So I hold it here because these two, the ones that I want to flip, are on the front face and the down face, and the left and the right face are going to flip. And what you do is that algorithm, turning from here, this is going to be our R, and this is going to be our U. So R, U, Ri, Ui, that's 1, 2 times, boom, boom, and one more time for 3. R, U, Ri, Ui, and it's solved. And you've done it. And that is the master Pyraminx.